The transport ship's engines whined as it descended through the toxic atmosphere of Kepler 442c, better known among the galactic academic consortium as the Grinder. Professor Vexhal of the Altarian Institute watched through the viewport as the landing party prepared to disembark. 23 of the galaxy's most promising xenobiology students sat in nervous silence, their environmental suits gleaming under the ship's harsh lights. 22 aliens, 1 human. "Remember," Professor Vexhal announced, his voice crackling through the comm system, "this is your final examination. 24 hours, survive. No outside assistance. No advanced technology beyond basic environmental protection. The ecosystem of Kepler 442c has been designed to test every survival instinct you possess." The students shuffled toward the airlock. Most were already trembling. The Delphian with her crystalline exoskeleton, the gas giant dwellers in their pressure suits, even the hardy Centaurians looked pale beneath their fur. Then there was Marcus Chen. The human stood at barely average height for his species, unremarkable in almost every way. His dark hair was unkempt, his environmental suit bore patches from previous expeditions, and he carried what appeared to be a standard emergency kit. Professor Vexhal had reviewed his academic record: mediocre grades, tendency to overthink problems, and a disturbing habit of approaching challenges from unconventional angles. "Good luck," Vexhal said as the airlock cycled. The surface of Kepler 442c greeted them with immediate hostility. Acid rain hissed against their suits, twin suns blazed overhead with radiation that would cook unprotected flesh in minutes, and the ground itself seemed alive, shifting, predatory vegetation that reached toward anything with a heat signature. Within the first hour, 3 students had already activated their emergency beacons. Professor Vexhal and his colleague, Dr. Thrushmore, settled into their observation post aboard the orbiting vessel. Multiple screens showed feeds from the students' suit cameras. They watched as the remaining 20 students scattered across the hostile landscape, seeking shelter in caves, trying to construct rudimentary barriers, or simply huddling together for protection. "The Delphian is already showing stress fractures," Dr. Thrushmore noted, her tentacles dancing across the control panel. "And look, the human has found a clearing." They focused on Marcus's feed. The human had indeed found a small clearing, near what appeared to be a freshwater spring, though fresh was relative on a world where the water glowed with bioluminescent toxins. "Interesting choice," Professor Vexhal mused. "Most students avoid open areas, too exposed." What happened next defied every expectation. Instead of seeking immediate shelter, Marcus began to work. He gathered stones, carefully, methodically, testing each one. He collected fallen branches from the carnivorous trees, dodging their snapping attempts with practiced ease. The professors watched in fascination as he began to construct something. "Is he building?" Dr. Thrushmore asked. Hour by hour, Marcus's project took shape. Using nothing but materials from the Deathworld itself, he constructed a framework. He wove toxic vines into waterproof barriers, their natural oils repelling the acid rain. He built a foundation elevated above the ground, away from the grasping roots. Most remarkably, he constructed a filtration system using crystalline formations he'd chipped from a cave wall, creating clean water from the toxic spring. By hour 12, Marcus had built a cabin. Not a shelter, not a hideout. A cabin, complete, with windows made from translucent stone, a functioning door, and what appeared to be a ventilation system that actually filtered the poisonous atmosphere. "This is unprecedented," Professor Vexhal muttered. "He's not just surviving, he's thriving." The real shock came at hour 18. Marcus activated his communication beacon, not the emergency signal, but the standard comm frequency. "Professor Vexhal?" His voice crackled through the speakers. "I was wondering if you and Dr. Thrushmore would like to join me for dinner." The 2 instructors looked at each other in disbelief. "I'm sorry, Student Chen, did you say dinner?" "Yes, sir. I've managed to cultivate some local vegetation. Turns out the toxic compounds break down beautifully when properly prepared, and I've been smoking some protein from the stream. Nothing fancy, but it's warm and safe to eat." Professor Vexhal's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. In 300 years of conducting these examinations, no student had ever invited the instructors to dinner. Most were barely clinging to life by hour 18. "You realize," Dr. Threshamore interjected, "that accepting outside assistance would disqualify you from the examination?" Marcus's laugh echoed through the comm. "Oh, no, Professor, I'm not asking for assistance, I'm offering it. You've been sitting in that cramped observation deck for 18 hours. I thought you might appreciate some fresh air and a home-cooked meal." The audacity was breathtaking. Against all protocol, Professor Vexhal found himself ordering a landing shuttle. The cabin was even more impressive in person. Marcus had not merely survived the Deathworld, he had domesticated it. The structure was elegant in its simplicity, incorporating the planet's natural defenses into its design. Bioluminescent fungi provided gentle lighting. The filtered water was actually pleasant to drink. And the meal Marcus served was, quite simply, delicious. "How?" Dr. Threshamore asked, gesturing at the impossible comfort surrounding them. Marcus shrugged, poking at the small fire he'd built using controlled chemical reactions from local minerals. "My species comes from a death world too, Professor. We call it Earth. When you grow up dodging predators, dealing with natural disasters, and turning poison into medicine, you develop certain perspectives." He looked up at the toxic sky, where alien constellations wheeled overhead. Other species see a death world and think survival. Humans see a death world and think potential. We don't just want to survive, we want to make it home. When the 24-hour mark arrived, Marcus was found sitting on his cabin's porch, watching the sunrise and sipping filtered water from a cup he'd carved from local stone. Of the original 23 students, only 7 remained active in the examination. Marcus was the only one who seemed disappointed when it was time to leave. Professor Vexhal updated his files that night. Next to Marcus Chen's name, he wrote, "Recommendation: immediate advancement to advanced xenocolonization studies. Note: consider revising examination parameters. Current test may be insufficient for evaluating human students." In the margin, he added one final observation: species designation, Homo sapiens. Classification, inadvertent apex predator. Caution, will attempt to domesticate anything, including instructors.